Hi, I'm Clark Nicholson, Program Manager with the Remote Desktop team here at Microsoft. And I've been working closely over the last 9 months with a company called MyCloudIT, who's developing a solution for automating and managing desktop hosting solutions in Azure. Today I've got Pablo Marin from MyCloudIT with me. Welcome, Pablo.
Thank you, Clark.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Pablo Marin, and I am the CTO and founder of MyCloudIT. 2 years ago now, we've been working on it since the very beginning, and then a year and a half later, we found you and your team, and now give it a name called Azure Desktop Hosting, and making it now an official general availability product in Azure here in July in WPC. So thank you for the invite, and look forward for the conversation.
So what's a typical scenario that you would envision for the use of your web service?
Well, an MSP wants to take customers to the cloud. They want to become a fully managed outsourced IT to a customer. And they want to go into a customer and say, I'll give you a fully IT managed operation, and the only thing that you need is internet. And no hardware, nothing, bring your own device, security, scalability, and mobility. And that is the typical customer of ours, which is MSP, that wants to offer that to an end user. And of course, we're saying Azure is the best backend solution. Don't be a data center. Let Azure and Microsoft guys do that, and you be the service offering and supporting the customer, and let the hardware be somebody else's problem.
So who are the end customers, do you think, typically in this scenario?
We have seen all kind of end customers. I mean, I've seen a lot of customers that have satellite offices. So it's a corporation or company that is, say, 100 people, but they are dispersed about 12 offices of 5 each. That's a typical good scenario. They want to have a centralized operation in one place and not having desktop and different applications distributed around the country. That's one thing that I see a lot. And I also see small businesses that don't want to own any hardware because it's too expensive. It gets outdated super fast these days. And they have to buy something that it's super big because they think they're going to grow. So they're buying a capacity that they're not using. So they're not taking advantage of the elasticity of the cloud.
And what about mobility of the end customers, end users? How do you guys support that?
Well, that's the beauty of Azure Desktop Hosting. Azure Desktop Hosting, it's hosting desktop in Azure, session-based. Although you can mix it to not be session-based, but at the end, it's offering one place in the cloud and in a data center that's very secure, who knows where, and actually it doesn't matter where is it, and that you can have a desktop, a virtual desktop, streamed to any device. So that gives the end customer the possibility to work from Starbucks or from my aunt's screen or from my son's computer. It doesn't matter where you are. The device is not your only thing that holds you. You're completely any device agnostic. You can access your corporate environment, and that gives you mobility. That gives you mobility and the ability to share information with your coworkers that might be miles or hundreds of miles away, and they're seeing the same share folder. They're seeing the same thing. So that is the main advantage of desktop hosting or virtual desktops. It's mobility, security, and scalability.
Yeah. So so it sounds like you're taking advantage of Microsoft's remote desktop services and the Microsoft remote desktop apps that we have for all the different types of devices.
Yes. In fact, the architectural implementation guide that you guys deployed back in last year, I think, it's the main technical guideline to do this. What MyCloudIT does is just put a lot of scripts and code and assuming best practices depicted by your guide and take it and do the heavy lifting for the MSP. And essentially add on to that, the deployment, add on the management features of taking care of users and passwords and share folders and monitoring and backups, and add it to that level. So we offer a full service for the MSP, so they can don't need to care about the details of Azure and how to do it in Azure because it's different than on premises. Just do it with a few clicks and have an Azure Desktop hosted deployment following best practices, that they can go to the end user and sell it and turn it off and they don't have to keep spending money on Azure. So that's the beauty of it. And that's why I think that following the guide that your team created is key, because those are the best practices that we have seen that work the best for small and large customers.
So, and how do you help the MSP manage their costs in Azure?
Great question, because that's probably the first question that we always have. How much does this cost me? In the creation of a deployment in MyCloudIT, when you select your what template you want, then the next step is to say, okay, how many desktops do you want? And do you want those desktops to be highly available, to have a highly available connection broker? Do you want to have highly available file system? Then you start doing your add-ons. And then do you want 1 terabyte or 12 terabytes or X terabytes of company shared disks? When you start doing the selection, MyCloudIT will give you a cost estimate of what your Azure monthly consumption is going to be for that specific configuration. And that is something that it might sound small, but it's huge for the MSP to know how much it costs me so I can charge my end user. Mm-hmm. And then after deployment is created, when you click on Edit Platform, you can see a scheduler. A scheduler to say, well, what happened if this configuration is not needed from 1 a.m. to 7 a.m.? Well, let's turn it off, because that's the beauty of the cloud, it's per hour. So let's turn it off every day from 1 to 7, let's say 6 hours, a quarter of the day saved because it's off. So you schedule that, and then MyCloudIT will give you a cost estimate of, okay, if you turn off that day, this is going to be your monthly cost.
So it sounds like a very fully featured service that you've built here.
Oh,
and I think MSPs are going to find it super useful. And you spoke earlier about security. We know that's a big issue for our mutual end customers. How do you see this solution built out of Azure, solving the security issues that our customers might have?
So in fact, I said, going to the cloud, I have one centralized management and the data being hosted in one place versus in 40 different devices running around and sending emails back and forth. That centralized is way more secure than having your data on your data center, that I'm sure that you don't have the security features that you should have, and having the data on the devices that get stolen, then the data is breached. So I always say to my end users, actually, it's a safer bet to go to a virtual desktop when the data doesn't live in the device than actually doing it in the device. And that changes the conversation, and that takes to Office 365, that takes to the whole cloud thing, and then from them it's an easy sell. So that's what we tell our MSPs, go and say that, start with security, because that's the first thing that you're going to encounter. So I don't know if that's your experience in the surveys that you're doing, but that's what we have found.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of customers like the comfort, if you will, of having all their data stored in one place in the cloud and not on the devices is one of the big concerns, especially when you have a mobile workforce and you have people walking around with different types of devices. You have to be very careful about that data when it lives on the end device.
When they live in the end device.
But the beauty of, as you're saying, the desktop hosting solution is that the end device doesn't actually have any data stored on it. It's just a window into the hosting service where the data is actually stored in a very, very secure location.
That's the value of Azure Desktop Hosting. It's doing that not in a small data center. It's in Azure, in the Microsoft data center, which is super powerful. And by the way, it's available in 17 data centers around the world, which I think it's super powerful.
Which helps your MSPs, your customers, because it gives them an opportunity to expand potentially into different geographies than they might have been able to handle given the size of their businesses.
We have one MSP, for example, that normally used to doing on-prem, and normally it's around his city. That's the reach he can get. It's as far he can go. That's as far his car can go.
Exactly.
Correct. But when you are and they're embracing this, now they can just put advertising online, advertising, and get customers from India, and they can put a data center in Australia, and they say, well, I'm going to host you in Australia. I host you in Sao Paulo. I host you in Western Europe. And suddenly you open the borders using Azure desktop hosting versus doing on-prem. Then you have to take care of the hardware. And then you suddenly remove the hardware from the equation and you become a new MSP. And that's, I think, what Satya Nadella and Microsoft leadership wants to go. It's like, leave that problem to us. Just dedicate to expand the service versus being an infrastructure provider. These are great questions that you're sending me here. Now I want to give you one question. How do you see the future of Azure desktop hosting and working with ISPs like us? And where do you see this market going with the customer, which is MSPs and the end customers? What's your take on it?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. Two years ago, we really started noticing desktop hosting taking off through our product and through Azure. And that has just been accelerating through the last couple of years. And so we really see great opportunities out in the future for companies like yourself who are building tools to automate and manage those desktop hosting environments, and also for the customers that you're targeting, the MSPs, to be able to more easily and quickly deliver solutions to their end customers. So we think there's a very bright future for this. Thank you, Pablo.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
Thank you all for tuning in today. And I encourage all of you to look for MyCloudIT's application in the Azure Marketplace.